The serving platters circulated around my parents' dining table like they did every Sunday, a tradition that had continued unbroken for nearly 2 decades. Roast beef, mashed potatoes, green beans, almondine. The same menu, the same china, the same seating arrangements. My son sat beside me, his economics textbook half hidden under his napkin. He was preparing for his university entrance exams, studying whenever he could find a moment between family obligations. My brother-in-law Marcus leaned back in his chair, gesturing with his wine glass like a conductor leading an orchestra. He ran a successful car dealership downtown and he never let anyone forget it. Every conversation somehow circled back to his latest sale, his newest acquisition, his expanding empire. His wife, my sister Jennifer, sat beside him wearing the diamond earrings he'd bought her last month after closing a particularly lucrative deal. She touched them frequently as if to remind everyone they were there. The dining room felt smaller than usual, packed with extended family. Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia occupied the seats nearest my parents. My younger cousin Tom sat across from David, scrolling through his phone with barely concealed boredom. My mother moved between the dining room and kitchen, ensuring every dish was perfectly presented and every glass kept full. "So David," Marcus said, addressing my 15-year-old son. His voice carried across the table, cutting through multiple conversations. "What are your plans after high school? Following in your mom's footsteps with the cleaning business?" The table quieted instantly. Forks paused midair. My parents exchanged uncomfortable glances across the table, a silent communication perfected over 40 years of marriage. I ran a small commercial cleaning company, something Marcus found endlessly amusing. He'd made jokes about it for years, each one slightly more pointed than the last. David looked up from his textbook, his expression neutral. He'd inherited my ability to keep emotions hidden. "I'm applying to business school actually. Economics major." Marcus laughed, the sound sharp and dismissive, bouncing off my mother's carefully arranged wall decorations. "Business school? That's ambitious for someone whose family scrubs toilets for a living." Jennifer didn't defend us. He never did. She'd stopped defending me around the time Marcus bought his second dealership and their social circle expanded beyond people who remembered us as equals. My parents focused intently on their plates, suddenly fascinated by the precise arrangement of roast beef and potatoes. "He's got excellent grades," I said quietly. "Top 5% of his class." "Grades." Marcus waved his hand. "Let me tell you about the real world, kid. I started with nothing and built an empire. 3 dealerships now. That's real success, not some theoretical classroom nonsense." He reached behind his chair and produced a mop, the wooden handle worn smooth from years of use. I recognized it from my parents' hall closet. He must have grabbed it before dinner, planning this moment of humiliation. "Here," Marcus said, extending the mop toward David with a theatrical flourish. "Practice for your future. Get a head start on the family business. Maybe you'll be as successful as your mother someday." The relatives around the table chuckled nervously. Uncle Robert smiled into his napkin, his shoulders shaking slightly. Aunt Patricia raised her eyebrows but said nothing, her silence as damning as any laugh. My father cut his roast beef with surgical precision, refusing to meet my eyes. The knife scraped against the plate with each cut, the only sound in the suddenly tense room. David took the mop with steady hands. He didn't blush or argue or show any sign of embarrassment. He simply set it beside his chair with careful precision and returned to his textbook, finding his place on the page without missing a beat. "You know what I love about real estate?" Marcus continued, warming to his topic now that he had everyone's attention. He lived for moments like this when all eyes turned to him. Tangible assets. Real property. Something you can touch, something that matters. I just signed a lease on a new location for my 4th dealership. Downtown, prime location. 20,000 square feet of pure potential. That's the kind of move that separates the winners from the floor scrubbers. "Congratulations," I said. My voice remained level, carefully modulated. Years of dealing with difficult clients had taught me to control my tone perfectly. "The building owner was desperate to fill it," Marcus continued, oblivious to the shift in my posture. "The previous tenant went bankrupt, left the place empty for months. I negotiated an incredible rate. 5-year lease, option to buy at the end. The property management company practically begged me to sign. I basically stole the place. I reached for my water glass, taking a slow sip. My laptop sat in my bag beside my chair, the leather handle worn from daily use. I'd brought it to show my parents some photos from David's academic awards ceremony last week, but I hadn't gotten around to it yet. The ceremony had been beautiful. David received 3 separate awards for academic excellence. Marcus and Jennifer hadn't attended. "How much is the rent?" Uncle Robert asked. He worked in commercial real estate for a competing firm and always wanted numbers, always measuring deals against his own portfolio. $48,000 a month, Marcus said proudly, his chest expanding. "In that neighborhood for that square footage, that's a gift. The building's worth twice that in rental value. The property management company said I was their ideal tenant." "That's the Morrison building, right?" Uncle Robert asked, leaning forward with interest. "On 5th and Main? 8 stories. The one with the Art Deco facade." "That's the one. 8 stories, underground parking garage, updated electrical, the works. My new flagship location. I'm moving my best sales team there next month." I opened my laptop. The screen glowed in the dimming dining room light. My email application loaded automatically. "Speaking of that building," I said conversationally, "I should probably mention something." Marcus was already moving on to another topic. "Jennifer and I are thinking about the Bahamas in March. David, maybe you can clean the boat before we leave." More chuckles from the relatives. My mother's fork clattered against her plate. "Marcus," I said, my voice still quiet. "About the Morrison building. What about it?" He didn't even look at me. I turned my laptop screen toward him. The email thread was clearly visible. Property management reports, lease agreements, quarterly statements, all addressed to me. "I own it," I said simply. The conversation stopped. Marcus's wine glass paused halfway to his mouth. "You what?" "I own the Morrison building. I have for 3 years. I bought it from the Henderson estate when they liquidated." Jennifer's face went pale. "That's not possible. You run a cleaning company." "I do run a cleaning company," I agreed. "We service 42 commercial buildings downtown. The Morrison building is one of them. I also happen to own 17 of those 42 buildings. The cleaning company is how I identify properties worth buying." Uncle Robert set down his fork. "The Morrison building sold for $8 million. I remember the listing." $8.2 million, I corrected. "I paid cash." Marcus's confident expression cracked. "Your property manager said the owner was desperate to fill the space?" "That was me. I was desperate. The previous tenant declared bankruptcy and left me with an empty building for 6 months. When your application came through, I told my property manager to accept whatever you offered." "This is a joke," Marcus said, but his voice had lost its certainty. I pulled up another email. "This is the lease agreement you signed last month. Notice the signature at the bottom? That's my property management company. I reviewed your application personally." My mother finally spoke. "You never told us you owned buildings. You never asked what I did with the money I earned. Everyone assumed the cleaning company was all I had." David was watching me with quiet pride. He'd known for years. He'd helped me review property listings, learning about commercial real estate while other kids played video games. Marcus grabbed the laptop, scrolling through the emails. Lease agreements, maintenance reports, insurance documents. All legitimate. All mine. "I need to make a phone call," he said, standing abruptly. He dialed his attorney right there at the table, speakerphone active. "Tell her about the Morrison building lease," Marcus demanded when she answered. His attorney's voice came through clearly. "What about it? You signed it 2 weeks ago. Very favorable terms, I thought." "Who owns the building?" Papers rustled on her end. "The property is held by Summit Commercial Properties, LLC. They own several buildings in the downtown area." "Who owns Summit Commercial Properties?" More rustling. "The principal owner is listed as, oh, it's your sister-in-law. I didn't make that connection when I reviewed the lease." Marcus ended the call. His face had turned an alarming shade of red. "You deliberately let me sign that lease knowing you owned the building? You submitted an application. I accepted it. That's how commercial leasing works. This is fraud. This is a conflict of interest. This is completely legal," Uncle Robert interrupted. He'd pulled out his own phone and was reading something. There's no legal requirement for a property owner to disclose their identity to a tenant. The property management company handled everything properly. Jennifer was staring at me like she'd never seen me before. How long have you been buying buildings? I bought my first property 12 years ago, a small office building in the warehouse district. I used the cleaning contracts to identify undervalued properties in good locations. When the 2008 financial crisis hit, I bought 4 more buildings at auction. Prices recovered. I kept buying. And you never said anything? My father's voice held something between awe and reproach. I tried to tell you about the first building. You told me I was being irresponsible with money, that I should focus on the cleaning business and stop having delusions of grandeur. So I stopped sharing. The table fell silent. Only the sound of my mother's antique clock ticking in the hallway. Marcus was scrolling through his phone frantically. The lease has a 6-month termination clause. I can get out of this. You can, I agreed. With 90 days notice and a termination fee equal to 3 months' rent. That's $144,000. Plus, you've already invested about $200,000 in renovations to customize the space. Those improvements become the property of the building owner when you leave. His scrolling stopped. Of course you're welcome to stay, I continued. The lease terms are quite fair. Below market rate actually. I wasn't lying when I said I was desperate to fill the space. You set me up, Marcus said. You let me humiliate myself. I let you be yourself, I corrected. I didn't hand you that mop. I didn't mock my son's ambitions. I didn't turn my success into a weapon against my family. Jennifer was crying quietly. My mother had her hand over her mouth. David's going to attend business school, I said. His tuition is already paid, full 4 years, room and board included. He'll probably take over the property portfolio eventually if he wants it. Or he'll do something else. Whatever he chooses, he'll do it without anyone handing him a mop and telling him to practice for his future. I closed my laptop and put it back in my bag. My plate was still full. I'd lost my appetite somewhere between the mop and the property revelations. We should go, I said to David. He gathered his textbook without a word. My mother found her voice. Please stay. We haven't had dessert. I think we've had enough for today. Marcus was still staring at his phone, reading and rereading the lease terms. Jennifer had her face in her hands. As David and I reached the door, my father followed us into the hallway. I'm sorry, he said quietly. We should have listened when you tried to tell us about the first building. Yes, I agreed. You should have. Will you still come to Sunday dinners? I looked back at the dining room. Marcus sat hunched over his phone. The mop still leaned against David's empty chair. I'll think about it, I said. David and I walked to the car in silence. The evening air felt crisp after the stifling atmosphere of the dining room. He waited until we were on the highway, the city lights sliding past our windows, before speaking. That was intense. Yes. I kept my eyes on the road, but I could feel him watching me. Are you really going to let him break the lease? Probably not. The termination fee alone would hurt his expansion plans significantly. He'd have to delay opening his 4th dealership, possibly cancel it entirely. And finding another space that size in that location with that much parking and those updated systems would cost him substantially more per month, probably $60,000 to $70,000. He'll stay. He'll complain about it, he'll resent it, but he'll stay. Will Aunt Jennifer forgive you? I considered the question carefully. Eventually. After she stops being embarrassed that her younger sister is wealthier than her husband. After she realizes I never actually lied to anyone. I just stopped sharing information that nobody wanted to hear. It might take months. It might take years. David went quiet for a moment, staring out the window at the passing landscape. Then he said, Thanks for not letting him define my future with that mop. Your future is yours to define. Always has been. That mop was about his insecurity, not your potential. My phone buzzed with incoming messages, the vibrations constant against the center console. My mother asking me to reconsider leaving to come back for dessert. Jennifer demanding explanations, wanting to know why I never told her about the buildings. My property manager asking if everything was all right with the Morrison building tenant, concerned about the abrupt phone call from his attorney. I silenced them all. The messages could wait. They'd all still be there tomorrow and I'd answer them when I was ready. David returned to his textbook, studying by the light of passing street lamps, his highlighter moving across the page in steady strokes. His future stretched ahead of him, bright and open and entirely his own. No mops required. No limitations imposed by other people's narrow definitions of success. The Sunday dinner revelation would ripple through the family for weeks, maybe months. Marcus would stay in the building. The lease terms were too good and breaking it too expensive. His pride would take the hit rather than his wallet. But every month when he wrote that rent check, every single month for the next 5 years, he'd remember the day he handed a mop to a 15-year-old boy and told him to practice for his future. Some lessons are expensive. Some are just embarrassing. Marcus's lesson was both, and it would cost him $48,000 monthly for the privilege of learning it.